أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh everyone. I hope you all doing great today. My name is Imam Muhammad Ameen and you've seen me often, and so you will check Expert Parameters group. You see the videos we've done in the past. So today inshallah أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. And today, inshallah, like you've all seen on the post that we made earlier, and so we're talking today about the really big difference between Hamza and Alif. And so for beginners, for those of you guys just joining or watching this video for the first time, I would recommend you to watch some of my past lessons and past teachings of the Quran to read. And so we've learned a lot. And so you've got a lot of videos in the platform to watch. And so try, to avail yourself of this and try to benefit from this, the videos we've had in the past, so that you can, be more in tune with what we're learning at this point. For someone who doesn't really know the basics of the letters of the Quran, or someone who doesn't really know about the Quran, might not really understand why we are trying to, make a distinction between an alif and, between an alif and between an hamza. It's really important because there are 28, Arabic letters. But the truth is that in the Quran, there are 29 letters of the Tajweed. And these differences in the numbers is brought by the Hamza itself, the Hamza and the Alif. And subhanAllah, a lot of people read the Quran, and mostly everyone just listens to how the Quran is being recited to them. But mostly not everyone is really aware of some tricks or some, I'm not calling them some tricks, I'll call them, not everyone is really aware of some of the really important structure of the Quran Arabic and also of the tajweed of the Quran. So you see there's a difference between you reciting the Quran and knowing what you're reciting, in terms of you knowing when you pronounce something wrongly and knowing when you pronounce something right. You see, so it takes some kind of effort and dedicated teaching and structured teaching to get the students to really know the nitty-gritty of the Quran, pronouncing the Quran ayats perfectly, and being aware even if they make tajweed mistakes of the Quran. And so this is something that we teach our students in the accelerated Quran reading program. And so we do have a program called the accelerated Quran reading program. This program is really interesting. We have 16 weeks program, and mainly we'll train students how to read the Quran on their own. And you would wonder, how could a child or someone who is a complete beginner learn to read the Quran? So it's not something that's really, maybe essay or something that we're just, like saying without substantiating with evidence. We've had many students and parents, supporters who have been with us. They know this is really working. They really know this is true. And so if you are doubting Thomases or someone who's not really sure, or you've had your child or yourself, reading the Quran or learning to read the Quran for a long time. I mean, for a long time, for years. Some kids or some people started reciting the Quran, for a long time. Some people have been reciting for like 10 years. I had a child with one parent this week, and the child has been learning, to read the Quran for more than 10 years now. And subhanAllah, and the child was meant to read the Quran with me. And I was almost crying because the time of this child has been wasted. He's almost very old, 20-year-old or more than that. But the thing is, the parents are not paying attention to some things that needs to be learned, or maybe the classes were not done consistently, or the classes do not have structure. And so in our program, we have curriculum that students will follow through. The parents can see everything we learn. And there is a plan on when the child will achieve reading fluency per se. And so today, let me share the screen about the rules of Hamza. Hamza and what? And Alif. Hamza and Alif. Like I said, it's important sometimes when you learn the Quran or you learn to be a fluent Quran reciter, you don't just want someone to read to your mouth and you read after them. All right? You don't want someone to read to your mouth and you read after them. You yourself wants to learn the basics. You want to learn the structure. You want to learn the nitty-gritty of the Quran letters. And this is so simple to learn. If someone is not able to design it, if the teacher is not able to design and get you something like that, then you need to move on and get something that's better. Because otherwise, you will find yourself, learning the Quran for decades. I say it seems so really weird, but you find yourself learning to read the Quran for decades, or you find yourself learning to read the Quran for a long period of time, or even for a child, and they will not achieve the goal. So in our program, we have curriculum as part of the things that we train our students with in the first module of our program, which is about the letters. We train them about the foundation of the Quran letters. How do they look like? What are some exceptions of the rules? And what are some of, some uniqueness of some letters that you will observe across the recitation of the Quran? So we give them practices, we give them exercises. So it's a curriculum. I already showed you Porter earlier last week or week before. I showed you how our classes look like, and the video lessons of this curriculum are also recorded that the student and the parent can watch after the class is ended. So mastering the distinction between Hamza and Alif. Like I said earlier, Hamza is a letter of the Quran, and Alif also is a letter of the Quran. So what's this distinction between them? Let's dive into this. So Hamza is a letter on its own that it can be on its own. So Hamza can be pronounced on its own, right? And so when you see an Alif mostly in the Tajweed is used as a form of elongation. Alif is not usually pronounced. And so whenever Alif is pronounced, it's not Alif that's been pronounced and Hamza is being pronounced. And you see here, so Alif with vowel sound. So we've learned what is vowel sound. You that are with me right now, and you've watched the videos of the lessons we've had in the past, you would know what a vowel sound is, right? We have the short vowel sound, right? The fatha, the kasr, the dumma, those are the harakat. Those are the short vowel sound. So whenever, and it's not often, whenever Alif, you will not see these kind of examples in the Quran. If an Alif is going to be studying an ayah, you will see something like a sword on top of it. And this is a separate rule entirely we're going to learn down the line, the rules of Hamza, the rules of Hamazat al-Wasl, Hamzat al-Qata. This is something you need to learn later on. But the first rule of distinction between an Alif and Hamza is an Alif will never have a vowel sound. It will never have a vowel sound, right? And so anytime you see an Alif with a fatha, or with a kasra, or with a dumma, or with a sukoon, then it's not Alif anymore. It's an Hamza. You see? And so the normal function of the Alif is used as a form of elongation. It's used as mid. It's used as what? Alif is used as mid. And you see Rumman. You see the meme here? The meme having an Alif mid. So this Alif mid is used to elongate the meme for 2 counts. We're going to learn that. We've learned that before in our classes. Just watch back the videos and avail yourself of those free resources in our platform. And if you have any questions, like you so really desire to have your child to learn to read the Quran correctly, fortunately, we don't have adult classes, but right now, unfortunately, we don't have any classes for adults starting very soon. We might have some, we might have some later on, inshallah, but we don't have right now, we don't have any adult class starting very soon. And so an Alif will never have a short vowel sound. So whenever an Alif is having a short vowel sound, it's having a fatha, kasra. In any case, it will never be an Hamza. It's never be an Alif. It will be an Hamza. So an Alif is used as elongation. So Rumman, Tuffa, Tuffah, right? And so that's the first rule and the first distinction you need to know. Alif will never have a short vowel sound. It will never have haraka. And anytime Alif is having an haraka, then it's not an Alif, it's an Hamza. Right? You're going to pronounce this as A, E, U. And so when kids are taught this in the Quran classes, maybe they're taught Quranic Qaida or whatever, they don't tell them this is not Alif being pronounced. Teachers do not tell students, you don't pronounce, this is not Alif here. Although you see the structure of Alif, but it's pronounced as Hamza. Right? So it's pronounced as Hamza in that scenario. Okay? The second rule, give me 1 minute. So this is a little bit started. The second rule All right, the second rule of Hamza and Alif is that an Hamza will not have what? An Hamza on the top or the bottom of an Alif is pronounced as what? As Hamza. And so when you see an Hamza, you see at the top of an Alif, or you see an Hamza on the bottom of an Alif, then it's an Hamza, it's not an Alif that you will be pronouncing there. And so let's go back into that. Okay. Okay, so I was showing that whenever Alif is having an Hamza at the bottom or at the top, and you see, you will never pronounce the Alif in there. You pronounce the Hamza. And so whenever Alif is together with an Hamza, the Hamza will take the precedence, will take the charge of the pronunciation, right? And so Hamza is pronounced here in this ayah, wa'i. So you're pronouncing the Hamza. And this is something you all know, right? وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ So the Hamza also is on top of the Alif. So in this scenario here, you're not pronouncing the Alif. So we tell our student trainer, you're not pronouncing the Alif, you're pronouncing the Hamza. Although the Alif is used as a base, like as a chair, right? As some people call it. It's used as a base for the Hamza. A Hamza can also be on its own as a separate letter. But most oftentimes, Alif cannot operate on its own. And if Alif is written and it's been pronounced, you're not pronouncing Alif in per se, you're pronouncing the Hamza. So Hamza could be at the bottom of an Alif or could be on the top of an Alif, and Hamza will be pronounced, that's for sure. We all know that. Or those who do not know that should know that. And so Hamza can use letter Waw as a chair. Hamza is pronounced in that scenario. So here, you see here, you're not pronouncing the Waw here. You're not pronouncing the Waw here. All right, you're not pronouncing the Waw here. And so this is Fu'adun, right? Fu'adun, right? Or you. You see the Hamza is pronounced here with the sukun. You. So we've learned the silent sounds of letters earlier. Go check our previous videos in this platform and watch it to get to know more about how, an Hamza or how Hamza is pronounced, or how letters, silent letters are majorly pronounced. Go check our lesson on that and you will find more information about the way you pronounce, silent letters of the Quran. How do you pronounce silent letters of the Quran? Go check our lesson on the silent letters. So here you're having, so here now, let me do this one. This one is now Italian, but you see here, when Hamza is using a Waw as a chair, the Hamza is pronounced. Or whenever Hamza is using, a Waw as a chair is pronounced here. So Fu'adun or Yu'minun. So Hamza is pronounced in this session here. You're not pronouncing the Waw here. You're not pronouncing the Waw here. You're pronouncing the Hamza. So Hamza can use the Waw as a chair, right? And so in that scenario, Hamza is going to be pronounced. Or Hamza can use the Ya also as a chair. It's going to be on top of the Ya letter. Quri'a. Quri'a. So here, you will not say Quriya, La. The Ya here is just there. It's not used by anything. It's just serving as a base for Hamza, right? So Quri'a. And so, and the last thing I would like to tell you guys, also no, before the last thing, the Hamza can also be on his own, right? It's rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. And so, and all right, you're gonna continue pronouncing it. Hamza on its own can also be separate and be on its own as well, right? Hamza can be on its own. There was one that I deleted earlier. Let me bring it back. When you have, so this is an example of Hamza here. Hamza is having, being on its own. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ in Surah An-Nisa, the one I just showed earlier. When Hamza is gonna be on his own. Here, Hamza is, is being used on his own without having to use, a Waw or without having to use a Ya as a base. So it's being pronounced on his own. Tasa'aluna. You see here, Hamza on its own is an Hamza. And so Hamza can use a Waw as a base, right? And Hamza can use a Ya as a base. And Hamza can be on its own. And also Hamza is only pronounced anytime you see Hamza, or you see an Alif, like I showed here. When you see an Alif will not always have a sound. It will never always have a sound. It's used for elongation. It's used for mid. It's used for elongation in Quran. And so there are 28 letters of the Arabic, but in the Quran Tajweed there are 29 letters. And the main difference of the distinction is because Hamza is a separate letter from Alif in the Quran. And so when you see an Alif that is beginning an ayah, or you see an Alif that is beginning a word, you're not pronouncing that Alif. Alif is not being pronounced there, but rather you're pronouncing a Hamza, right? And so anytime an Alif has a short vowel sound, or you need to pronounce it to begin a word or to begin an ayah of the Quran, then you should know that you are not pronouncing what? You're not pronouncing Alif, but rather you're pronouncing an Hamza, right? And the second thing is that Hamza can use, Alif as a chair, or it can be at the bottom of an Alif. And so when you see that, of course, you're not pronouncing Alif, you're pronouncing a Hamza. You're pronouncing a Hamza in that right scenario there, when you see Hamza at the bottom of an Alif, or you see Hamza at the bottom or at the top of an Alif. And so in that scenario, Hamza is pronounced. Or you see an Hamza is what? And Hamza is at the, on the top of a wa. So it's using a wa as a base, or it's using a ya as a base. In those scenarios there, Hamza is pronounced rather than the ya, or rather than the wa. And so this is something we need to bear in mind. And when we learn the Quran, you see, we need to make sure students get this distinction and get these differences. It's really important, and this is something that really baffles me, that we learn the Quran in such a way that we don't want to improve on how we learn it. People think, oh, I've got to learn the Quran, maybe people use one-on-one classes, which is really good, but sometimes the one-on-one classes might be really good if there's a structure in place to learn. So the kids come into the class, they got homework, they got practice to do on their own, they got separate day to revise. And these are things that we provide in our Accelerated Quran program. There are 3 strategies, and you guys have all seen the guide on this platform. Build the skills to read the Quran. These are the skills you need to learn. It's like you want to build a house, you need to gather all the things you need to use to build a house, cement, sand, water, and all that before you start building. And if you are building and you have to go get the other thing in the middle of the building will just be a chaos. The building will not be so solid because you're not getting everything you need to get from the beginning, and it's like helter-skelter running around and something is falling behind and all that. So we want to make sure students learn the Quran, learning the basics, and so they grow up and having the sound foundation of the Quran letters, sound foundation of the Quran, words and the structure. And another example you see here is when Hamza is used like, at the bottom of ya like this. So you see here, Hamza is pronounced here. You don't pronounce any other thing here except for Hamza. So this is what we're going to end today. And if you want more other, detailed explanations, or you want a mentorship program where you can get to learn to read the Quran, click comments below this video, or personally reach out to me, and inshallah we'll get to you more information about our program, and so that you and your family can benefit and your kids can become fluent reciters on time, instead of having them to learn for 5 years or even 1 year. It's too much to achieve reading fluency based on our own student performance in the past 5 years. So a student can read the Quran in a program within 4 months, inshallah, and they can start memorizing the Quran or just read the entire Quran on their own after the formal program, inshallah. I would like to end here. So if anyone have any comment, or you have any particular questions that you have in mind regarding Accelerated Quran system, do not hesitate to reach out to us. I will be more than happy and excited to give you more feedback and inshallah more information. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.